Welcome. I'm your host, Dustin.
I'm your co-host, Aaron.
And for our first episode of the new season or series, we have the host that screams, and we have a little bit of an intro that I've been trying to work on. Very, very short. So let me know if this sounds too cheesy to you guys.
Within the Barrens, tear these souls apart.
Yes.
With some Nazi zombie shit.
Yes. So I've been trying to mess around with some new things for this to make it seem a little bit different. So I'm hopefully everybody who listens to this, likes it. But we'll let you guys, kind of take it away and introduce yourselves and let them know where we can find you, and then we can start getting into the questions. So you guys have the floor.
So I'm Shawn of the Dead, and I am the co-host to Candy the Final Girl, and our podcast is called The House That Screams. We cover horror movies. We do side shows like Horror Business, where we cover non-horror films with horror movie tie-ins, which that's kind of a loophole we created for ourselves so we could cover, movies that weren't horror that we wanted to cover without creating a separate podcast. We do feminist reviews called Ghoul's Night Out, and we've just recently started a segment called Brain Eaters, which we haven't released yet. It's coming out soon, but it's literary horror reviews. So look for that soon. You can find us on Twitter at house_screams, on Instagram at the House That Screams, and on all your favorite podcasting platforms.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys really do have a good show. Candy, if you want to input anything on that, unless you think Shawn did a great job, which I think he did, but I know you like to always add, so.
Yeah, he did a wonderful job, but me not talking is really strange.
It is weird.
So, the evolution of the show is very interesting. I'm sure we'll get into that, but I wanted Shawn to go first because I tend to overtalk him on any appearance that we do together and on the show, so he did a great job. He covered, a good intro to the show, so I'll back that up.
Yeah, I do agree. And for those of you who are curious of what this new, if you want to call it a season or a series, it's our interview series. So we have Shawn and Candy on, and they're doing something way different than I think you guys have done ever, right? Since the start of the show.
Correct.
Is being actually interviewed, and we're gonna ask you how everything came together. But before we do that, as you guys know, you definitely are the reason why our show is a thing, especially on my end. And then I kind of roped Aaron into doing this because we've always wanted to do something, together. And
that wasn't work.
Yeah, that wasn't work. And he always wanted to kind of get into horror. And I've been into horror my whole life, even though I was literally scared of everything from the age of 3 to 12. And then I finally started breaking out and, starting to really understand the genre and like it for what it is. So we started this podcast about a year and a couple months ago. And it's really all thanks to you because I never really got into listening to podcasts until somebody was talking about them one day, and I just was scrolling through I like horror, so what we got for horror? And the first one I came across was The House That Screams, and I think it was probably the best way to get into podcasting, to kind of understand the whole universe and how to run a show and everything, because you guys have an enormous crew. And
Yeah.
but it's a good thing though because there's so many voices and
so many opinions and
yeah,
different takes on things.
So I guess what we can start right now is when did it get so big, and when did you guys start adding more members and stuff like that?
I think that would have to go back to how it began. I'm very we have this punk rock mentality in both Shawn and I, and what happened is, we realized I had a spinal problem and my mobility was really affected. And I'm like, our kids are growing up. We have 2 adult daughters, and our son, was at that time, finishing up junior high and going into high school, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with my time? I'm disabled, whatever. And this was, all I've done is just be a wife, be a mom, I'm like, I want to do something that I care about. And so it was like I went to Shawn. I said, you know what I want to do? And not having been he listened. He's always been a podcast listener, and I'd be like there a little bit, like, okay, the people are talking, whatever. And I'm like, I love to talk, and I want to do something with that, and I want to talk about something I care about. I said, guess what we're doing? And he's like, what? And I'm like, a podcast. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, we love horror. It's something we bonded over, and like punk rock. And I'm like, we should do this. And he's like, enjoy that. I mean, I'll let him tell his half of that in a second. But when we started, it was us and like our terrible first season that I leave up for a reason, so people can know that you can just jump in, not know what the fuck you're doing, and build something from that. But we just some random 3 people that we threw in there, and everybody that is on the show are people that we met for the first time when we just said, hey, you want to come on our podcast and do a show? And I'm an adopter, so I'll let Shawn tell his end of the story on that.
Yeah, no, she's pretty spot on. I mean, like she came to me and told me she wanted to do a podcast, and I'm like, that's great, have fun. And she was like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, I'm gonna do a podcast, and you are gonna do it too. Which when you're a married couple, that's kind of how it works.
You don't get a say.
Right, yeah, you don't get a say, like, you're gonna fucking do it. And I am an introvert by nature, and so like
Same.
Putting myself out there, being vocal and social, not really my cup of tea. And so I was, at first I was kind of like, I thought we had the understanding that like she was going to do the podcast and I would be a guest, every now and then. And it just quickly, like overnight, turned into an every week thing. And we've been doing it this whole time. And she needed, I think the first season she edited the
badly,
podcast.
Really badly.
And
Not my
it
thing.
and it got to a point where it kind of got to a point where she was getting overwhelmed with the amount of time she had to spend editing and recording, and she does all of the socials for the podcast. So I had come from a music producer background. Now I was in a band in the late 90s, early 2000s, but in the mid to late 2000s, I had gotten into producing electronic music on the computer, and I had access to a digital audio workstation. And so I was like, you know what? I was like, let me take these files, let me upload them, let me do the editing, see, what experimentation I can do with these. And it just kind of went off from there. Now I'm the guy that gets stuck with the editing.
Get stuck with. I mean, he composes. We've had a couple different opening theme songs, and he's the one that inserts like a clip from every movie that we do. Picks like what we call the winning quote from the conversation, which is usually it has nothing to do with the movie or something absolutely ridiculous that somebody said about the movie. Usually the most improper, disgusting thing.
Yeah, and that's been like probably one of the funnest parts about this whole journey. Aside from the podcasting has grown on me a lot, and being social and getting to know everybody. But the editing process and the creativity behind it, being able to create the intros that we've used for the various different, we just started doing a versus segment, so I got to create.
By the way, it's such a great segment.
Thank you. Got to create an intro for that, create an intro for Shawn's Shitty Reviews.
Another great segment.
I've even had other podcasters reach out and say, hey, can you create an intro for me? And so I've been able to do that for them. And, and that's been really cool. And it honestly like has opened me up and made me more social. I'm still an introvert, but I'm still able to communicate. We've done some great interviews with Vic Victor of the Coffin Cats, Grady Hendrix, Ben Scrivens from Fright Rags, and it's been an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I can definitely, say that I love all the intros that you guys do. They're very entertaining, and I love all like the clips that you take from the movies, and always listening to that first like little conversation that you guys capture before everything takes off, and realizing, okay, this episode's gonna be wacky, because it's always something you're not expecting, because with the amount of people you guys have on there, it's always like whatever happens, and it's always something great. So that's awesome that you're able to help other people as well in the podcasting community. I think that's awesome. And like I'm definitely an introvert. I really really am. And like you're saying, this show, I guess what's happening to you is happening to me. Is like you're actually able to still be like an introvert, but you're opening up a little bit more, and you're talking to more people, even though it's not directly face to face, but you're still having those conversations. Aaron, I know he's worse than me.
Major social anxiety.
Yeah, he has really bad anxiety, but that's another reason why I kind of wanted to do this with him, is so he could start to realize like, hey, it's actually okay to be out there and talk to people. And
I've gotten a little more comfortable.
I think you've gotten a lot more comfortable, to be honest. Like, you are like, every time I'm like, hey man, we're gonna be doing this with so and so, he's like, dude, I'm so ready for that. Or I'm like, hey, we got these interviews on. It's like, dude, I'm ready. Let's do it. Before you would be like, I don't know if I'm good with that, man.
Yeah, it definitely takes time. I still, there are some episodes where I still kind of get the butterflies going into it, because I'm like, I do have that social anxiety, that nervousness about having to interact with people when we have guests on that we've never had before. It's always kind of made me anxious, just because I'm not much of a social person, but it really has given me the opportunity to open up and get comfortable with people and make new friends. And when you talk about, other podcasts reaching out, not even for, intros, but just questions, just like, what do you use to edit? What do you use? How did you do this? What microphone do you use? I mean, I get these questions, and it's like, that's the beauty of it. Like, there's no competition in the podcasting realm. Yeah, we're all here to support each other.
One
help
big
each
family.
Yep,
Exactly.
That's how I feel about it too.
Exactly.
I mean, not to say like.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Candy. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the people that do try to get competitive, and they're few, it's they don't last, because they don't get the whole familial part of the horror community. On the whole, the horror community is a wonderful place, and I'm the kind of person, I have a lot of anxiety. I take a lot of medications for it, but I'm not shy, is the thing. So that's the difference with me.
Definitely
It's like,
not.
I'll fucking talk your arm off. And, it's sort of like, don't poke this bear, because you're going to sit there for 4 hours. But, and that's kind of, in our marriage, and also, it translates well to the podcast. I'm also an adopter, and that's how our show got so many people. Some of which, have gone on to other projects. They're busy with their other podcasts and stuff. So, things have changed a little bit over time. You can hear us literally grow as a podcast as we go along to where we are now, which is sort of much more streamlined. I mean, it's still crazy, but it sounds better, and it's a lot more professional. And there's a lot of people, but it's just better managed.
Yes.
And that's sort of what I do. Is I schedule, and I reach out, talk to people. I do all the socials. I communicate with people. Ian was one of the first. We started out kind of at the same time when he first started doing his show by himself, his original show. And so Ian and I have been just like leaning on each other the whole time for this journey. So I mean, I've met the most amazing people, and that's one of my favorite parts. We have people who come on the first time as guests, and they're so completely shell-shocked because they're trying to deal with the circus that's going on, but then they want to come back. So that means they must like us or enjoy what we're doing. Because for us, if we're not having fun, there's no point to it. If us personally, we're not having fun, and the fact that other people have fun listening to it, that's really awesome to me. I'm still always shocked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can attest to that too. Like, first time going on your show, I was a bit like, ooh, there's a lot of people here. But once, everything starts rolling, you really start opening up like, okay, everybody here is really down to earth. Super fun to talk to.
That one time when I went on.
Yeah.
Everybody, like you said, everybody's down to earth. You guys all vibe so well, too.
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't always agree, but, like, that's the beauty of, like, people
and we don't.
having different
opinions.
Don't
always agree.
Yeah.
If you've listened to our Nightbreed episode, everybody shit on it but me. So,
and
I think somebody had your back. I just can't remember who.
Well, I can say that I have Shawn's back. I love Nightbreed.
Yes,
I love it.
So great.
I don't hate it. If that's fair. Yeah. Does that count?
But,
I mean,
that's
is it Clive Barker's best? Probably not, but it's still fun.
Right. Oh yeah. Right.
Or when everybody massacred me on Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, I was heartbroken. I was like, why would you do that? But we keep all that in. We don't edit anything out. Everything that you hear is the real conversation. Yeah. Even the bickering or how could you rate it like that? What the fuck?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to touch on too, with the amount of people that we have on, because not everybody can make it every time we record. So, one episode we may have 7 people on, the next episode we may have 4. And the beauty of it is, you have there are a lot of horror podcasts out there. A lot.
Yes.
And everybody does their thing differently. You have some horror podcasts that they will verbally read you through the entire film and kind of riff on it as they go along. Which is great, that's great, and that works for them. But for us, with the amount of people that we have, we've turned it more into like a round table discussion. And we don't really follow the movie. We jump around a lot. So
like when I start out talking, I'll be like, so at the end of the fucking movie, I can't fucking believe this happened.
Right. Well, our latest episode 7 is a good example. The very first thing that we start out with is what's in the fucking box right off the fucking bat. So we kind of go into it hoping that whoever's listening to this has already seen the film, right? Yeah. We're not going to read it to you. We're hoping you've already seen it, because if you haven't, guess what? You're going to get it ruined in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But also I've been told that I'm very persuasive. So people who haven't seen a movie or maybe saw it and didn't like it, will go watch it again, because we have these discussions. A lot of us have, when we get to our ratings, I'll be like, mine was a 6, but since we've talked, now it's like a 9.5. You guys have brought up some interesting points. So we're just sitting there scribbling, changing our scores, and it's a growing experience. There's a lot. I was not a Jason fan whatsoever. Did not like Friday the 13th whatsoever, and now I do, and that's something over the last 2.5 years that I have. You come along and you grow on these movies where you before just like straight up hated them or didn't like this character, and now you're just like, oh my god, I'm such a fan.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of happened with Aaron and me. There have been movies that we reviewed, and I'm just like, man, this is a dog shit movie, and then we'll talk about it, and Aaron's like, this movie actually kind of kicked ass, and I'll just be like, you know what? You're kind of right, man.
Yeah,
you're kind of right.
They did that to me with the Dawn of the Dead remake. I went into that like absolutely not enjoying that film at all. And after, an hour and a half, 2-hour discussion, listening to everybody, and their thoughts and their feelings behind it, like it made me kind of rethink, like, oh, maybe I was looking at this in a different light. Maybe I was looking at this with too much of a Romero stick up my ass. And,
which is odd. That's usually my job.
Right. And maybe I just need to kind of sit back a little bit and have a little more fun with it. And it vice versa. Some movies that I absolutely loved as a kid, we've went back and revisited. Monster Squad.
That one hasn't been released yet, but it will be very soon. And you'll hear grown-ups talking about a movie that they loved as a kid where maybe we don't love it anymore.
That nostalgia factor, like, just kicked my ass.
Worn off, yeah.
Oh, man. I'm kind of afraid to listen to that one now because I really like Monster Squad.
No, there's nothing to fear. It's a really fun discussion. With us, it's like, even if we're presenting something like that, and that there's so many of us that not everybody's going to think that, but we do make some valid points, and we have a good time getting you there. So even if you don't agree with it, I think I not a gambler, but I like to say that, regardless of whether you agree with us, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely true.
That's the most important thing.
I always have fun listening to the episodes. Even if, you guys come out hating a movie that I love, I'm like, that's okay. I enjoyed the ride. I enjoyed the ride. Like, I know, Candy, you hate Killer Clowns. Oh,
I
man.
fucking do. That's what I got to do for the one episode only, Candy shitty reviews. And I felt like I presented my argument as to why I don't like it pretty fairly.
Yeah.
And then I did say some good things about it, but I had my own reasons for hating it that are within the episode, and I'm like, I think those are valid.
Yeah.
Sort of like that, like, if I hear Smells Like Teen Spirit ever again in my life, I might commit like harakiri or something. Like, I just can't.
Oh, no.
I just can't, because it was like that's junior high for me, and it was everywhere. There was no escaping.
That literally
it.
happened to me at work earlier. I was playing music. Fucking Papa Roach came on. I'm like, sorry guys, I've heard this song way too many times.
I gotta quit now. I'm so sorry. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go out and kill myself and have a good time.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. Was there a movie that you saw, Candy, that made you want to do the podcast, or was it just like you were saying, kind of like a spur of the moment type thing? Like, hey, we're gonna do this.
There was, and when you listen to season 1, which I don't recommend, we didn't do single titles. Then we just did general, like a theme. Like, what's your favorite horror director? And we all picked one, and we would talk ahead of time. We always have a group chat, and that's when we had started it, so I could plan things. I'm a big planner. I even have season 6 scheduled for next year. I'm a planner, and you guys have seen my schedule. It's fucking insane.
Yep.
I'm a planner. That's what I do. But Shawn and I have known each other since we were kids, and one thing that we always bonded over was our love of horror. And I did Ghouls Night Out last night. Of course, Eric and I did, but we had 2 guests, and we were talking about that. Like, we always, all 4 of us that were on that show were like, it was always us hanging out with guys. We didn't have any female friends to talk horror with. But yeah, Shawn and I always bond over horror, and especially like Tom Savini, George Romero, we're huge fans. Famous stories about that stuff, like the hockey checking picture of where I literally threw him out of a picture of me and Tom Savini. It looks like he's photobombing. But I mean, it's like we already had that passion. This is stuff we were already watching and doing, and it's part of our bonding as friends, and then into lovers in marriage and parents. So it just seemed the most natural thing to talk about, because it's something we already were doing, was watching these things, so and having a love for different parts of the genre. So it just seemed natural to me.
Awesome.
Yeah, because this easily could have turned into a Motley Crue podcast, and that would.
Oh, fuck you! I hate that. Listen, that was my childhood. Okay, like I gotta leave it there, because I'm smart enough to know when nostalgia is wrong.
Another thing that I could probably ask, this can be individual answers from both of you. What is your favorite horror movie? And we'll start with Shawn.
Well, I think we covered this on your podcast. It's Return of the Living Dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our first perfect score.
Yes, it was.
I think it was a perfect score on our show too. I think we all enjoyed the hell out of that.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
It was. And what about you, Candy?
Well, I don't have one favorite anything. Is the thing.
Hey, that's fine.
And I do say that on the show quite a bit. I'll give you my number 1 spot and my number 2 spot, and it's 4 movies. Number
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Does
Yep.
this surprise
Let's go.
anyone at this point?
No, that's pretty normal for her.
That's actually pretty pared down for me. But in the number 1 spot, because I cannot distinguish amongst them, would be the original Romero Dead trilogy. I love Day the more and more the older that I get. I've always loved it. Dawn. I have so much Dawn stuff. Like on George Romero's birthday, I was like posed with like my Flyboy doll and the Living Dead dolls and all this different stuff, and I have the shirts, and it's gonna be my next tattoo. But Night of Living Dead is super just iconic to me, my first horror movie. So they're all tied for 1 and 2, which is kind of like it keeps moving up the ranks. It would be Maniac from 1980.
Maniac is a really good one. We haven't covered that one yet, but that's definitely on our list.
Think of one.
No, Aaron, he's still learning the ropes of all the horror movies. So every time I'm like, hey, let's go watch this movie. He's like, oh, I haven't seen that one. I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, because then you kind of get to re-experience it through someone's eyes, like, because we can never watch something again for the first time and get that like same rush. But when you watch it with somebody, like we just covered when we did Cube and Nightbreed and stuff like that, some of our recent episodes, Dave had never seen them. And Crystal had never seen Cube either. And so hearing them talk about their experience for the first time with it, and I've seen it like 8 million times, I was like, ooh, I can't wait to hear those. I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
And on the flip side, when we did our Bride of Frankenstein episode, that was
a great episode, by the way. I enjoyed the hell out of that.
Oh, it was such a fun talk. Ryan is a really great guest.
That was the first time I had ever watched it. And Ryan Rodriguez had watched it when he was a teenager, and he was like blown away. He was like, how awesome to be able to watch that for the first time. You know? And I'm like, it fucking blew my mind.
Yeah, I love going back to the classics. I feel like it's definitely, they're very old, right? You would expect everybody to have talked about them to death, but a lot of podcasts don't touch any of the older stuff. So like, knowing that you guys are, diving into that as well is really good, and I think it definitely helps with growing as a show as well, because people are like, holy crap, they're talking about like the 1930s, 1920s. Like no one talks about that. It's always about what's in the theaters right now.
Right.
And what I always like to say is, my other favorite genre of films is the classic films, and Shawn was not a big older movie guy, and it was kind of like, well, now you're gonna have to see some of these movies. And this is pre-podcast, but I'm showing him Humphrey Bogart movies. I'm showing him all this other stuff, and like I said, I think it was on the Bride of Frankenstein episode. I'm like, when we get to cross over classics and horror, I am like fucking on fire. And I think the first one I did, and it was a gamble, because nobody else had seen it on the show, was The Bad Seed, and I said, we'll see how this does. See if this is what people want to hear. And I gambled. So I throw this psychological horror movie from 1956 at people that, it's not one of the Vincent Price ones. It's nothing like that. I'm like, let's see if people are interested in this. And we did it, and it was a great conversation, and it fucking blew up. And it just shocked me. And I was like, okay, you guys just opened that floodgate for me. So now I throw a lot of classics out there because it's something that I love. And a lot of people, like, you're right, they don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about the newest movie or whatever, and we like to do that too. We've done that quite a few times, but stuff like even on release day, we've done an episode, and we're like, hey, this is a spoiler episode because we're dicks and we can't talk without spoilers. Got a bunch of different personalities, but doing an old movie where I'm maybe the only person who's seen it, and I'm like, tee-hee, can't wait to hear what everybody thinks about it. And I'm always very interested if anybody wants to listen to it. I'm not going to get mad if they don't, but when we had such a huge generation of excitement for The Bad Seed of all things, the original version of it, I was just blown away. I was like, oh, wow, we can really go there now.
And to go along with that, we did both Cronenberg's The Fly from the 80s, and we did the original Fly. And me personally, I like Cronenberg's Fly. Yeah. And I know that a lot of people do. But as far as podcast is concerned, the original Fly, that episode blew up way quicker.
It's much more popular than the remake one, which surprises us both.
Yeah.
We're like,
I was kind of blown away by that. I thought that Cronenberg's Fly was going to blow up a lot better than that one, but...
Well, that kind of harkens back to some of the episodes we're surprised. Evil Dead 2. Nobody. I mean, like, it's one of our lower listens. I mean, it's still got a lot of listens, but it's like it's lower. And I thought it would blow up and be in our top 10. It's not even close. You would be surprised what's in our top 10.
Yes.
And also like our Creep Show double feature. Yeah. Like people were like yawn. They didn't want to listen to it. No. And I mean, it has its own listens, and sometimes things are what we call a slow burn, where it'll get popular later. Mm-hmm. But so it's always the ones. I mean, anymore, I have to think Joe Bob if I can do that.
Yeah, you have the floor right now. Whatever you guys want to say,
In February of this year, see, I have this thing. I went through I had a nervous breakdown when I was 18, and that's back when Monster Vision was first on, and Monster Vision was like an important part of my life. So I used to write handwritten letters to Joe Bob, which he loves. I did not know that at the time. I just didn't have a home computer. We were poor. It was like 1997 or 8 or something.
Yeah.
And and so my whole life had fallen apart, and I would just write him these letters, and I had agoraphobia. My anxiety was so bad, and it would get me to go outside because he would handwrite me letters back. So fast forward to last year, we get to meet him. I'm in a wheelchair at this point, because when I go to cons or any events, because of my back, I can't stand very long, and I'm in a wheelchair. He comes to meet me, and we spend 20 minutes with him pre-show, because it's the live show that will be airing this year. That was at the first Jamboree, and I'll be damned if on the Valentine's Day special, Darcy or Diana, she hands him the letter that I wrote, and he reads it. Not only that, my inboxes on Twitter, Instagram, everything are flooded with people saying, "You're brave for saying what you did," because I talked about my anxiety, how he helped me in ways that other people could not help me, how horror helped me. And so millions of people read that. Even Shudder reached out to me, and then suddenly now anything that we release is just astronomically successful. And I get to communicate with Joe Bob. I get to and Diana's really cool, and it's just like that wasn't supposed to happen, but that really pushed us. I mean, we were doing well, we've been working hard, and we were successful, but that really pushed us over the top. So whatever we release now is just like it does well, and I'm like, what the fuck happened here?
Yeah.
I was just really brutally honest about something that most people are too embarrassed to talk about, and Joe Bob's just like, whatever, and write me letters, and it's just really amazing. So that, I think that was what pushed our show to finally, like, we feel like we finally made it. I gotta thank him for that.
People like authenticity, and they like to hear inspiring stories. And
yeah, that was a really good episode too. And I remember you like talking in the chat too, saying like, that's my fucking letter, and like I was just like, I almost cried, because I was like, that is fucking awesome. I know that Candy's always wanted Joe Bob to pretty much like hear you, and everything. It was awesome to see that you got something to him, and I know that you guys met him last year. I'm actually trying to see if I can go to this year's Jamboree. I'm hoping it works out. So if you guys are going to be there, I'm sure that we'll probably bump into you. It's something I'm trying to work towards.
So late, and I would have loved to have gone. But the thing is that they're coming here in July, and we already booked that. They're coming to Indy, so we're like, and the drive-in settings, and I'd love to go. I plan to go in another year, but we already have so many things booked as far as like horror cons, and I will be seeing Diana and Joe Bob in July. So
we
it's
actually,
kind of like, well.
Yeah, I think the weekend that they're doing that in Memphis is the same weekend that we're going to Haunters Against Hate in Lexington.
Correct, and we're meeting a lot.
So we had already bought the tickets when they announced the Jamboree, and it was like, really? Okay.
Always the way.
Yeah.
And Haunters Against Hate is going to be amazing, because Mark Patton's going to be there, who was on my list of people I'm just dying to meet. And Mark Patton and I talk, so it's really amazing that I get to meet him in person, and almost the entire cast of Day of the Dead's going to be there. And I'm like, fuck yeah. And it's for LGBTQ charities. So like, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome, because Mark's actually going to be around here for a convention I'm going to in September. So I'm going to be meeting him too. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, we are very big supporters of the LGBTQ plus community. We just had, Death Drop Gorgeous on last night, which will be the second episode that's going out. So for anybody listening to this, because this will be the first one, you guys have to wait until Wednesday to listen to it.
But it's going to be worth it.
Yes.
I can't wait.
They're a bunch of really awesome dudes, and they're so local to us too. We're actually going to go see a couple of screenings that they're doing in June, because they do like their own screenings of the movie and everything. So I can't wait to go and see that.
Oh, that's rad.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, the horror community just as a whole is...
Everybody's so humble.
They really are.
Yeah. And if you're not, you get found out really quick, and then people kind of
weeded out.
Yep, and we kind of see that sometimes on Twitter with shit bags all over the place, and they kind of get tossed out immediately, which is good that we, everybody in the community kind of holds their own. They don't, loosen their grip for anybody, and that's a good thing. There's not too many communities out there that are like that. I would say that the metal community used to kind of be like that, but it's gotten so toxic.
It really has.
Yeah.
So
punk rock community is still pretty cool, but I mean, just in everyone, you're gonna have a couple assholes, but you just want to go to the ones that have the least amount of assholes. As a woman who is sort of the face and the voice of the House That Screams, I do run into some creeps, particularly on Instagram.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of dick pics.
Yeah, that will
and
happen.
I show him to him because I'm like, if I have to see it, so do you.
There you go.
That are the stalkers. I tend to get more stalkers than that.
No.
Cut that shit out, guys.
So relatable. I talk a lot and very open. That they just like, oh, this is the perfect woman. She likes horror and she likes punk music and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I'm married and this
you've
is
never
really
met her.
Inappropriate. Like, why would
You've never
do
had
that?
anyone like show up at your house or anything, though, right?
Oh no, no.
Oh, okay. When you said
I
stalker,
wouldn't
that's where
invite
my
it.
head went. I'm like, oh boy.
Shawn would be like, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Some of those guys have had some pretty impressive penises, so I may invite them in for a beer.
It's so much less than I used to be really involved in Twitch streaming. I used to be a really major gamer, and my age is starting to show. So I don't game like I used to. I still game, but that was so toxic. So this is like nothing. But you know what pisses me off more than that? Like dick pics, it's not okay to do that. It's not okay to harass me or stalk me. But what's worse is that, and I bitch about this a lot because it happened so recent. I'm still pissed about it. Is that somebody else who has a podcast and they, maybe have like 200 followers, and that's great. I was excited when I had 200 followers. I'm like, 200 people care what I have to say and all the promos I put together for the show. I work really hard on those. And they were like, well, yeah, I guess my podcast would be as successful as yours if I had big tits. And I'm just like you do. And I'm just like, if big tits were going to buy me the thing, I wear an F cup and I worked 2.5 years to get where I am, buddy. Like, it didn't help me at all. Actually, it's a little harder when it's a female-led thing. We have to work twice as hard to have respectability. But overall, the community is great. But they're just, every once in a while, there's assholes like that assume that we have success because of who I am. I'm not gorgeous. I'm not anybody special. I just use my voice and I'm honest and I like to have fun. And it's like, no, we work hard. We worked really hard. And if that was the case, why did it take us so long to get here?
Yeah, that's true. People just always like to try to find some sort of reason.
Oh, yeah.
And those are the people, like, I'm like, that's why no one listens to your podcast if that's the kind of message that you're spreading.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, like that goes out to anybody. Don't be assholes. Don't just assume things like that. And
Especially nowadays, like I feel like the pandemic just brought the worst out of everybody. Like
it did.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Everybody's like personalities have twisted, and there's so much awful shit happening in the world right now, especially in the U.S.
It makes me want to cry sometimes. Some days I shake when I read the news.
It's so bad. Like I don't even watch the news anymore. I just, if there's somebody I followed who's talking about a certain topic, like I'll find it out through that. But everything is just so negative, and it's awful. You can't even like try to speak your mind now without somebody wanting to fucking kill you for saying one word about something wrong.
Well, I've been no stranger. If you've listened to the podcast over the years, I will sometimes when we do plugs, and I'll be like, I don't have any social media accounts because I'm not on social media anymore. And I've done it multiple times. And we as human beings, we have such great access to information now. And sometimes that information becomes overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
And when I start to realize, like, here I am just doom scrolling on Twitter, I like pop out of it and I'm like, nope, I got to delete my accounts. And so I'll delete Twitter, delete Instagram. I haven't fucked with Facebook in a long time, but
Facebook is trash, man. It's
right.
I have my Instagram automatically post to Facebook, so I don't have to get on it.
But
yes.
but there will be times where I will just delete my social media accounts for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it takes for me to kind of recharge the batteries and refresh. And then I'm kind of like, I need to get back on there because I'm a part of this podcast and I need to retweet. It's
part of the job.
Right, yeah. And podcasting, as I'm sure you guys know, it can be a full-time job.
Yep, and that's kind of like where we're starting to get to at this point now, and like especially you guys, I imagine that it's definitely getting to the point to where it's like, fuck, this is everything, and like we're putting so much work into it, and that kind of leads to another question I wanted to ask you is like, did you ever think that the show was gonna get as big as it is right now?
Absolutely not.
No.
I was like, I'll be happy if we have one listener. And I still feel that way. If there's one person that wants to hear what we have to say, I'm happy.
Yeah.
So I'm always like shocked when I see what's going on. I'm like, people like us? What's going on here? Because we're crazy.
At the end of the day, like, what we do it to have fun. And we do it to have intellectual conversations and to have fun and enjoyment and to just talk about movies that we love and, sometimes movies we don't.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And we record it and we put it out there, and if people listen to it and they enjoy it and they have fun with it, awesome. That's sweet, And if they don't, cool. Like
everybody's
like
entitled to their opinions.
Exactly. And
Correct.
there are a million horror podcasts out there, and maybe ours isn't for you.
It's not for everyone.
That's cool. Like we have a different format than a lot of other podcasts.
Yes.
Do we have a format?
Well,
I know you guys
Controlled
say you don't
chaos.
have a format, but I think in a way you do. In a way you do.
We have a rhythm.
Definitely.
We have a rhythm.
But yeah, okay, there you go. That's a word for it.
We tried to do the whole like controlled chaos where it was like, everybody because we record on Zoom, and everybody, would raise their hand and we would try to choose them in order. But that fell apart really quickly.
It falls
I
apart
have the
every
speaking
episode, and we
stick.
just
No, I
stopped
do.
it.
Yeah. And I'm glad that it did, because, and it's another reason why I don't, when I edit our podcast, I used to, like in the very beginning, I would go through and I would edit out all of the ums and the uhs, and I was very intricate. And I'm sure you run into this when you edit.
Yeah.
You pick out all of the things that you do, the little ticks that you don't like about yourself. I hate my voice. I hate the sound of my voice anyway. But
Come on, guys.
I constantly say constantly.
I say like and totally.
And
I say constantly.
Yeah. And when I go through and I edit and I hear that all the time, and I would go through and I would cut out those little bits and pieces. But then it got to a point to where it was like, no, this is stupid, because now it sounds robotic. Now it sounds like, over edited. And what I want is a natural flow. I want organic, And so now when I edit, like I may have to edit out a cough every now and then, or Dave likes to get up and make a new drink, so you'll hear like the ice clinking in the
kitchen being remodeled. It sounds like he's remodeling the kitchen.
Sounds like he's remodeling his kitchen. But I a lot of this stuff I don't edit out because it takes away from that flow, from that organic flow. And
and
that's
the thing that we can promise as a show is we are very genuine. What we say, we've not cut anything out of it. We're very honest, and so that's like a promise that I can give about every show, is that we're honest, and what we say is exactly what we said. We didn't cut any part out of it. We didn't add anything to it. It's and the thing, like you'll hear at the end of the episode, we're like, love you, bye, because we record on video. We're looking at each other. We can't stand to not look at each other. We miss each other. So even when we take a few of the, we'll usually only take one break a year, but we have a situation. There was death in the family, so we got to take next week off. Also, and then week in June. But next week is our oldest daughter's birthday, and so we're taking a week off, and we're just gonna be like, we have our group chat, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Because throughout the course of this, you can hear best friends becoming best friends. We all started as strangers, and now we talk every single day.
Yeah.
We meet up, because we're all over the country, but we'll meet up at things. We can't stand to not look at each other. It's more of us hanging out. That's more what it's about, and that people want to listen to us hang out and talk about movies and trash movies or whatever it is. We'll get personal on the show. I'm one of those people that makes it so uncomfortably personal, because I'll go there, like brain damage. No shame, and I know that I'm going to be talking brain damage with you guys.
Yep.
I will go there again, because it's an important message, but we still had a lot of fun in the midst of all that. It's all about honesty and realness, because we're really friends and we really look forward to doing this. It's a fun thing.
I always like think of it as like, I'm not in like a negative way, but podcasting is kind of like a drug, but a very positive one, because it's so addicting, but it's something you're doing positively. It's nothing that's like harming you. Like, if there's ever a time like Aaron and I can't do a show, which hasn't really happened that much, but when it does, I'm just like, I'm having withdrawals. It's like,
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like when we take our holiday break, it's like 4 weeks, and we're just like freaking out. Especially me, and even the nights that I'm too sick to do a show, I'm like FOMO in the bed, like God, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times we've had an episode to where Candy was, maybe not feeling the greatest, and she's like, I'm gonna take the night off, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'll host. And she ends up sitting next to me the whole time talking about the show. And, so it's like, here I announced at the beginning, Candy's not with us tonight, but then she just magically appears. And I get it, because it's hard to miss out when you know that all of your friends are doing something that you like to do. Like, you want to come and be a part of it,
Nobody likes to
It's
feel
a
left
hangout
out.
for us.
Right, yeah.
And also, like, kind of harkening back to what we were saying, like, this kind of does become a lot of work once you get to a certain point of success. I always tell people I spend the first 3 hours of my day, and this man sees it all the time. I'm drinking coffee, and I'm answering social media stuff. I'm putting out episodes. I'm promoting. I'm talking within the network. I'm talking to other people. I'm setting up guests. That's every day, hours. I just do that. And I don't mind it. I mean, I'm not getting paid for it, but I enjoy it, and I like being part of the community. I like that people come to me for advice, and I like that I can help support other people within the community, that I can give back. So that's sort of my job, what I do.
yeah, I'm like the same way. Aaron, because he works so much, he works way more than me, so I handle all the editing. I'm reaching out to all the guests, all the socials, and everything. Like it seems like it's a lot. Like, he's always like, dude, like, thank you for doing like all this work. I'm like, it seems like a lot, but I love doing it so much that it doesn't bother me like at all. Like, even at work, because I work at a really mindless job, like, I'll answer things like while I'm at work. Like, if someone messages me or a guest is like, hey, I want to come on, or whatever, I'm like, I'll answer it. The only thing I stopped doing that was a lot of work was doing like the video or audio promos, because having to find a specific clip or something that you want to put out and then have to get that edited on top of editing whole episode, I was like, I that's the one thing that I just don't do anymore.
We're sporadic with it because he does that.
Yeah, and it gets overwhelming. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but lately, over the last couple of weeks, we've started releasing 2 episodes a week,
Yep.
Tuesdays and Fridays, and there's a reason behind that.
Yes, and my fault a little bit.
The reason for that is we were just releasing 1 episode a week, but because of the regular movies that we do, and then the horror business episodes we do, the Ghouls Night Out, which they record on Friday nights, and then the literary reviews, we were recording 2 episodes a week. And
Eric
so
and I sometimes do 3.
just by basic math, if you're recording 2 episodes a week, but you're only releasing 1, they start to build up. And it got to a point to where I think we had about 10 episodes sitting, in a folder on my computer that were waiting to be released. Now, about a year and a half ago, we had an issue where we had about 10 episodes, because the same situation had occurred on my computer, and the hard drive crashed, and I lost all of those episodes. And
We had the most beautiful episode on
there
Mandy.
were some really
it was
great
right after my back
episodes.
surgery, and
No.
we can't ever recapture that.
And we lost them. And so where I'm at now is I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm just going to edit the fuck out of all of these episodes. We're going to spit out 2 at a time. And now it's kind of like an a la carte. Like, listen at your, leisure.
Yeah.
And I think that consistency with podcasting is important. I don't think it's the most important aspect of podcasting. Obviously, I think it's, audio quality is number one, because first and foremost, why do people come to you? To listen.
Exactly.
So you want your audio quality to
And
be the
see,
best.
that's where we meet in the middle and are able to create something because I'm all about content.
Yeah. Obviously content is important too because nobody's going to want to listen to you in the first place if you don't have, the content they're looking for.
Exactly.
But you want to have consistency, right? So you have a schedule, a release schedule. You have certain days that you release on, and Tuesday just so happens to be a good day for us. And so we release our newest episodes on Tuesdays, and then the ones from the backlog is what I'm putting out on Fridays for the time being until we get caught up. And then once we get caught up, then I'll be fine. But
Yeah, we're about 8 deep right now.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of like what we're doing right now is because we were only doing one episode a week, and then I really wanted to start doing guests, like just a guest episode, not like talk like about movies. So I reached out to Aaron and was like, no, I know we've only been doing the podcast for like a year and a couple of months, and we've only been doing like one episode a week. I'm like, would you be okay with adding an extra day and seeing if we can get some guests on? He's like, yeah, if you get people, we'll do it. And then
it's just been constant, like people reaching out, and like so we have so many like guests lined up at this point. Like
That's awesome.
It's nuts. And there's some stuff that I'm really, really excited for that I want to say, but I can't because I don't know if I'll get in trouble for doing it.
Right.
But,
Right. I know what you mean.
But yeah, it's really cool. So what we have lined up right now, I can say the next one that we have going on that we're recording on Tuesday is that we're going to be having Jason Miller come on. He's a comic book artist. He also worked with Fright Rags. He did all the Chucky design for the cards on that. He's a really, really good friend of our friend Dean of the Dead right here with his hot sauces. He did a lot of his artwork. So he's coming on, and I think Dean's actually going to be on episode 2. And we always try to make it a point. I know that we probably told you guys about Dean numerous times. Mm-hmm. He's such an awesome guy. Right now he's doing a convention. He lives over in the UK, but he's always doing conventions. Every weekend he's doing a convention. He's out there selling his product, and he's trying to get over here to the States. So Aaron and I, since we became such best friends with him, that we're trying as hard as we possibly can to help him get over here. And so I always make it a point to let everybody know if you are looking for a guest and you want to talk horror, Dean of the Dead is the person to go and find because he's awesome.
Yeah, I remember. I think you were talking about it in network chat. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I got to do that. So it's in my scribble notes that I keep. I just have this. I'm constantly writing everything down. I'm surrounded by notebooks right now.
Yes, she is.
Can't see them. This is my sort of office. But I'm sorry, excuse me.
You're good.
But yeah, I mean, I think the way that we fell into guest was just me going up to people, on social media and being like, hey.
Yeah, do you want to come on?
Yeah, and Miguel Nunez was our first celebrity guest. To get a perfect score, which is a very, very short list for us, and the number of members vary. We started out with 5 of us. Of that 5, the other 3 have gone on to other projects besides Shawn and I. And we are now comfortably at about 6. Again, people just get busy. A lot of other people that were on the show, they had like another podcast that was theirs, and it's just we kept running into conflicts because I'm kind of a hard task mistress. I'm like, we're gonna record 3 episodes this week, and we're gonna talk about this, and some people can do that and some people can't, and it just starts to sometimes they're just on sporadically or they just like decide to focus on their own podcast. We're comfortably at about 6, but even with 6 people and a guest, because we almost always have a guest. You guys have seen my schedule. It's every single person has to give it a 10 for it to be a perfect score. And Return of the Living Dead was our first perfect score. And so coming off that, and I cosplayed as Trash during that one.
That's
and
awesome.
We did the whole Spider and Trash interaction before she takes off her clothes. And like when I ripped open my shirt, it said like I had the feminist shirt underneath it. It was really funny. But yeah, everybody get that 10. So I was like, I'm gonna reach out to Miguel Nunez. And when he did our first interview, he was like, Candy, I can show you 100 times I told people no for doing exactly what you did. But for you, there was something that told me to say yes. So a lot of it was luck.
That's crazy.
You
Like,
shoot your shot.
that's what I've been doing just almost daily. It's just like, hey, you want to come on, and
What's the worst they do? Say no, you know.
yeah, or just not answer you, which
Or
is
not answer you, and
yeah,
that's
which
okay.
is
I don't let it affect how I feel about the person. Now, if they make me run through a bunch of red tape, talk to their manager, set something up, and then ghost me, I
yeah,
feel some type of way. But um, I still don't. I'm still not mad at them. I'm just kind of like,
yeah,
well, why did I have to go through all that if you just weren't even gonna do it? Like,
No.
because
Yeah.
I'm willing to do whatever I need to do. But we ended up, that was like a serendipity thing too. I believe everything happens for a reason. Because that was with a certain band. I ended up reaching out to a different band that ended up being the right band for us
Hmm.
to have. So it all happens for a reason.
yeah,
And it's
exactly.
just luck and reaching out, trying.
Yeah, like I've definitely reached out to some people, and then I have to reach out to their agent, and they're like, how many people you have listening to your podcast? If you have
Right.
enough, then we need to have like 5% of whatever it makes. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
We don't make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, are you
Shit, what
kidding me?
talking about?
It's like yeah, we need to have something in return. I'm like, nah, it's just not worth it. I'll come back to you maybe another time.
Yeah.
So if
I
you
don't mind people, and this is something I've learned along the way, because to be where the certain level of success that you are, some people will use you in a
Mhm.
way that, and that's something I've learned the hard way, because I want to be everybody's friend. I want to do what I can, but there's some people, they start their podcast and their very first episode, they want me on there, and I'm like, dude, I'm really busy, and no offense, I will help you in any other way that I can, but I can't be your first guest. I don't know what your show is doing or what it's about.
yeah,
I have to be careful about that, because I've had people use me in this industry, um, even before we were as successful as we are now. And then they ghost me and never talk to me again.
yeah,
Just
they just want
name
your
drop
clout.
me.
That's all. And
And
like,
it hurts my feelings, because I just want to help. I
yeah,
just want to be there. And so when they want a certain number of followers or whatever, it's because like it shows that you put in the work, you've been doing what you want to do. Now when it comes to wanting money, I'm like, you think there's fucking money in this? The money that we do get from donations, from shirts, it just pays for our fees that we're paying out of pocket.
yeah,
And that also, Erica, on the show, and we run a makeup business. We just trademarked. We have an official website, whatever. That all is funded out of our pockets.
yeah,
We're trying to sell a product, and we're not trying to sell the podcast, but it's like any donations or support that we get pays for our Zoom fees, pays for the fact that we had to get new mics or whatever. It's like, we don't make any fucking money. Are you crazy?
no, not at this
No
point.
way.
Like we're getting to that point right now where we can actually start using anything that we make from the podcast to actually start paying for Zoom and stuff like
Right.
that. And I want to get him a new mic arm. So it's all gonna start really taking off. Like I kind of project by the end of this year that will actually be to the point where we can rely on the show to pay for those fees consistently, and then kind of build off that. I mean, like wherever the show goes, it goes. Like Aaron and I always say, like if we make anything from this, it's just an added plus. Like do I,
Exactly.
do I want this to be like a full-time thing, like an actual job?
Like I'm
Fuck
not gonna
yeah.
say no to it. Yeah.
Like,
But
Right. Yeah.
Like I love doing this. I love talking, and I love horror, and I love the whole community and all the connections that you make. So yeah, if it really does turn into an actual job, like I can say bye to wherever I am, that's fucking awesome. That would literally be a dream come true. And and
As
then
for me, I'm a disabled woman. That's why I started this. I didn't know what to do with my time, and because they took away, my ability to, you can't bend and do laundry, you can't stand for this long, you can't whatever. But I can sit here and I can talk,
yeah,
and managed to create a horror-based makeup company, and become a figure in the horror community. So, do I have a career? Absolutely, from this. Does it make me a lot of money? No, because
Right.
anything we make on the makeup, Eric and I just put into the next project.
yeah,
So it's all about the love of what you're doing, and I don't know, Sean. How do you feel about this?
Well, I think it just like everything
I,
else.
I'm hosting already.
Yeah.
it's all good.
Just like everything else, you're going to get what you put into it. And the second that we started to put more and more effort into the podcast is when we started to see more and more growth and more development. we have stickers, we have T-shirts, and when we go to conventions, we got a handful of conventions we're going to this year. We're handing out business cards. We're handing out stickers.
That's what Aaron and I are going to start doing too, because that's a great idea.
Yeah, wearing the T-shirt of the podcast just to get your name out there. It's no different than I think back to when I was 19 years old and I was in a metal band. Like, what did I do when I went to every fucking concert I went to? I was handing out flyers for my band.
Same.
I was promoting my band. I was promoting my shows. Everywhere I went, I would stick them on outside of nursing homes. You know what I'm saying? Like everywhere I went, I was promoting. I had my band's sticker on my car, because I wanted people to see that. I have our sticker on my car. I want someone to pull up behind me and be like, "Oh, what's this? Let me look this up. Oh, wow, I like horror. Here's a horror movie podcast." You know what I'm saying? Like you never know when you're going to come across, we're out at a convention and I'm handing out business cards, and I just handed one to, somebody who writes for Fangoria, who ends up handing that off to, I don't know, Barbara Crampton. And she's like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to get in touch with these guys."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, we've talked to Barbara a couple of times, and she's fantastic.
She's so wonderful. And we have a picture of the three of us together, and Barbara and I are, like, all hugging up on each other, and he's just kind of like, "I'm here with two cool chicks."
Yeah. And for us, I have a full-time job, and I'm probably going to work that. I who knows when I'll retire. Maybe if I hit the lottery. You know what I'm saying? The way things are going in the world. I'll probably work until
Our Candy's getting
I'm dead.
published. Maybe I can take care of that.
I'm banking on her to sell a couple of books. But, so we do this for fun. But like you said, if something were to happen and we were to somehow become successful from podcasting, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain.
No.
You know?
You're a baby. Like,
And if any other podcaster tells you differently, they're fucking lying to you.
They're full of shit.
exactly.
Because I know that, we all do this for fun. Every horror podcast out there, we all do this for fun. But if Spotify came to you and said, "Here, you're going to be the next Joe fucking Rogan. Here's $10 million.
Yeah, I mean,
Nobody's gonna say no to that.
I can't tell you a single person that's going to turn that down.
no, that's life-changing money. That's like way more than life-changing money. That's
Right,
like I'm
right.
set for life, dude. Like,
Yeah.
Dude,
no,
give me
no
a free
more
I'd be happy
$1,000
episodes.
with
you
like
changed my life.
$100,000. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
that's a lot of money to me.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, we're gonna sign you. Oh yeah, guys, we're announcing it. We're canceling the podcast. We're taking the money and running.
We still love you, but bye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Oh, we're actually gonna hand it off to these two new people. So have fun with them.
Yeah.
What was the who created or came up with the idea of calling it the House That Screams?
I did. I don't want to get any legal trouble as to. I think that I can't over the title. But you'll notice a theme if you're a punk fan as to where we get ideas for, our side casts, and the name "The House That Screams" came to me because I was like, I was listening to Misfits as usual. I love horror punk. That's kind of what I specialize in, although I like all forms of punk and a lot of metal. But listening to Shawn's favorite Misfits song, Devil's Whorehouse, and it's just come alive in the house that screams. I was listening to music when I write, and I was like, dude, that's awesome. I really like that. And I said, what do you think about this for the title? And he was like, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you won't get in trouble for that. I mean,
Glenn Danzig's kind of a prick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd be
So-
surprised. He'd probably, well, not to mention, I used the Misfits in a couple intros for.
Like Ghouls Night Out is one of my favorite Misfits songs.
Yeah.
And we go into that just a little bit, and for Horror Business, just like a couple seconds of the song, Horror Business. By then,
Yeah.
think
And
you'll be
I
okay with
I totally think that if Glenn Danzig found out, he would sue the shit out of us. Cause
I
it's
did
just-
threaten
Just
to
be like,
kick his
"Hey."
ass once, though, so I think we'd be, all right, because I already threatened to fight him.
Yeah, just be like, hey, you can come on to the show and just have all the money. You're good. All right.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, you can have all the money that we make.
Yeah.
Not every last bit of it.
Yeah. Well, and on the flip side, the intros for Sean Shitty Reviews and our new Versus segment, that it's like kind of a dubstep feel. So those are from a guy who goes by the name of Figure, and he is actually an Indiana native. I've met him a few times, and all of that the music of his that I used is free music, so I can't get in trouble for it. But he is a huge horror fan. He's a
I
great
was
guy.
like, oh my god, why haven't we reached out to this?
I
dude?
was just
What's
gonna
the matter
ask,
with
like,
us?
Yeah.
if that's the case, reach out.
Yeah, he's
I don't know why
a
we haven't.
huge horror fan, and all of his electronic music, because he doesn't just do dubstep. He does drum and bass, house music, but it's all horror themed. Majority of it. He has some that's not specifically horror themed, but yeah, most of his stuff is horror themed. So yeah, check him out if you're into
And
electronic music.
I use him because I do a lot of our coolest promos on my Instagram. The Instagram is Candy the Final Girl, but I basically, like I say, depending on whatever mood or climate I'm in, I pimp everybody on the show. Basically, I'm everyone's agent, so it's Candy the Final Girl, but I'm always talking about the show or horror related things. Occasionally, my makeup, even though I have a separate page for that, but yeah, I represent everyone, so it's Candy the Final Girl, but I do promos like, okay, we released 7 or something. I usually use a lot of Figures music, his free music over it, because it's monster themed. Like when we do a Freddy episode, we just did New Nightmare that came out recently as of this recording, and I use Figure for that. His
Yeah.
Freddy.
That was also a really good
stand-up.
episode too. The New Nightmare one was really good.
A lot of bickering.
Yes,
Disagreements,
yes.
but it was for me. Anytime we do Freddy, a lot of us pull all of our Freddy gear out, and have a good time with that.
Yep. Another really I guess important thing to ask is what started your love for horror. We'll start with Shawn.
Yeah, so my love for horror. So I was on Ken Sledge's YouTube channel, Sledgehammer Horror, and
Great channel.
He does a My First Horror Movie series, and I was on there, and my first horror movie was Hellraiser, and that all came about because I was 8 years old, and
Perfect
my
age.
dad, right, and this would have been 1988. And my dad was asleep on the couch watching Hellraiser, and I had snuck in there because I kept hearing screaming, and being the curious kid who's trying to go to sleep and he keeps hearing screaming, he has to go investigate. And so I end up going out there, and it was right at that infamous Jesus wept scene. And I remember like that fucking horrified me. I
That's
had
awesome.
nightmares, but I knew that I couldn't tell my mom about it because my mom was very against horror movies.
Very
And
straight laced kind of lady.
very straight laced. And so I knew that I couldn't say anything to her. So after a couple of days, me being the honest kid that I used to be, I went to my dad. And instead of my dad punishing me or telling me, no, you can't watch this, my dad did the opposite. He said, you're going to sit down and watch this. And so we sat down. He made me watch Hellraiser. And that it became a bonding thing. And every weekend we had this small little mom and pop VHS rental place that we would go to, and we would pick out a couple of horror movies, and that was how we spent our weekends.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Candy?
I'm gonna take it back a little further than him, and you'll maybe not. I don't know if other people from other places noticed that in our intros, whether the intro changes or not. There's a famous laugh, well, for us, at the beginning of every intro, and it's Sammy Terry was our local horror host when we were kids, and like in the 80s, and even when my mom was younger, in the 70s. And so, Sean and I grew up on Sammy Terry as children, and I was like the most scaredy cat kid. But I was also, I think I was the first person from the House That Screams on my first horror movie with Ken Sledge. Because I was the one that was like, you know what, you should join our network. You're so fucking awesome. Because he's also a Midwest guy. And so we he had me on there, and I have the nickname the Romero Snob. My first horror movie officially as a fan, even though I had grown up on Twilight Zone and Sammy Terry, which was showing like those B movies and some of the old Vincent Price AIP movies and shit like that. But my first one was at 6. My mom showed me Night of the Living Dead. and it's still to this day because I was so excited when Joe Bob on the season that's on right now showed Nightly Dead. I was like, fucking finally.
Yeah.
And so I was pumped that whole night, like tweeting like crazy and just all over the place, like excited. Um, it I think our first horror movie kind of shapes our taste into how we judge and what we think of other horror movies. So to start out with something that's so socially conscious, so dark, and fucking everyone dies, and it
Yeah.
has all these, this is I'm watching this at 6. I mean, I was mature for my age, but I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. But of course, then I went on to Dawn, and then Day was still, rather new at the time, and I just watched them in succession as a child, and so that's why they're my number ones. I mean, and like nothing can beat that. It gave me horrific nightmares, fucked me up, and I wanted more. I'm that kind of person. I think most horror fans are like that. Like that was horrifying. Now I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And so I think our first horror movie, and I love that Ken does that series. It does have an effect on us. But yeah, Sean and I both grew up on Sammy Terry, the local horror host. I actually met him when I was 11, and here I was thinking I was such a badass watching gore films, and I'm terrified of this guy. My mom worked at a mom and pop video store because I had the same experience with my mother because I didn't really have a dad with my mother that he had with his father, and my mom was showing me horror movies and like making jokes out of it and like, hey, we're gonna sit down and watch this, and just to kind of like watch me squirm a little bit and educate me. And then she had me reading Stephen King at age 9. She was badass, and we try to be those kind of parents, but with guidance with our kids. Our kids are all horror fans. Our son's named Ash. It just the cycle continues if it's something that you love.
Yeah, that's kind of like over here too. My son is 4. He doesn't like watching the movies, but he has a really big obsession of like watching all the toys being played on YouTube. So he has like all the Toonie Terrors. He's got a bunch of costumes. He loves Michael Myers. I mean, he takes after me because
he's obsessed.
my first horror movie that I can remember like watching is the original Halloween, and I was about the age I believe it was between 9 and 10, and I couldn't watch the whole thing, but then I would go back and try to watch more of it, and I'm just like, this is actually kind of cool. But then we started going to like all the haunts and stuff that were around here. I would go through them, but my eyes were closed the whole time until about the age of like 13, 14, maybe even 15. And I broke out of it, and I was like, these are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So whenever Aaron and Aaron's never been to a haunt until last year.
Yeah.
Last year, so I took him for his first one, and like I was like, dude, I'm just gonna let you know, I don't go in here to be scared. I go in here to look at how awesome the set designs are.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. Like I'm not going in there to be scared. And he was like, you know what, this is really cool. And he's like, oh shit. So I'm just like scared.
As
So
long
I'm
as
just
I'm
like,
not being fucking grabbed, I'm cool. But
Yeah,
if somebody fucking
yeah.
touches me, they're getting decked.
In our house, I mean, we go as a family to like horror cons. We get Horror Hound here.
Mm-hmm.
Is because one of the big fives, that's the Midwest one. They threw us a fucking bone for once, but we get a really awesome horror con, and we get Days of Dead comes here and stuff. And I'll go do that stuff. But we have a rule that the kids and Shawn go to the haunted houses and the haunts because I will go to jail. I actually before they started actually throwing people in jail, I punched someone in the face. It's like I have really high anxiety. And I don't like, and I'm also anti-jump scare for anybody who listens to the show. They know that. So, like scare me in another way. Like don't just make me jump. So when anybody jumps out of me or grabs me, they're going down. I'm gonna kick their ass, and I can't help it. It's like an instinctual thing. So I'm like, they're going to haunted houses. I'm like, have a good time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play video games or something.
Yeah, and I'm like you. Like when we go to a haunt, like I love the set design. I'm a big special effects guy and makeup guy, and I love the effort that a lot of these haunts put into it. We have one here locally that's actually put together by a special needs house, and they hire a lot of special needs actors to come
awesome.
in and play the parts. And I got to tell you, like that one is better than a lot of the other haunts around here. They put
that's awesome.
so much more effort into it, and it's for a great cause. All the money, all the proceeds go to this special needs house, and it's just, it's such a great thing.
What's
But
that one called? The Angel or
Saint Angel,
Yeah.
Saint Angelus
Saint Angelus
house.
or
I'm gonna have to
Saint
look that up
Angelus
on
house.
And again,
on the web.
everybody's having fun doing it too, you know.
Right, yeah, and they're all having a good time. But like Candy said, she has that involuntary reaction where she hits people. When I was 15, we had a local haunt here where we're at now. We live in the suburbs of Indianapolis. It was called the Haunted Barn, and it was an old barn that they had converted into a haunted house. And I worked there for a year. And we had a guy who was much older who dressed up like Jason, had a chainsaw, which, when I was 15, that was awesome. Now that I'm older, it doesn't make sense because Jason
He
and
has a
Yeah.
chainsaw.
Yeah.
Not really.
But he had come up behind this woman and had, cranked the chainsaw and turned it on, and the woman had her keys in her hand and she had her finger through the key ring, and she turned around and involuntarily punched this guy right in the face.
Oh
and
no!
broke his nose, and the paramedics came, the cops came. They had to shut the haunt down because it was this big ordeal. And yeah, so I get it, I understand. I remember taking our middle daughter Isis to the children's museum. They have a haunted house, and it was lights on, right? So for younger kids, and she got so scared that she jumped up my back and peed her pants.
Oh no! Poor thing.
And so I had pee running down my back, and I'm carrying her through this haunted house. She's got her face buried in my back, and I'm like, it's not even meant to be scary. Like
No.
they're all dressed up
children.
like fairies and stuff.
Pumpkins and
Yeah, but she was just horrified, and so she doesn't really do it a whole lot now. But Veronica and Ash, like the three of us, we try to go every year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
And-
that time you.
Oh no! Candy, not again.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah,
There she is.
I was just gonna bring up the time that Daniel went with you guys.
Oh my God. So my brother-in-law, Candy's brother, is
My brothers are twins. They're 4 years
Yes.
younger than me.
Oh, that's
and-
awesome,
and-
actually.
And they're gay, and
Yes.
and Daniel is very flamboyant, and
Nathan too.
Nathan too. But
To be fair.
we took him to this haunted house, and it was the special needs house that I had told you about, and he is so over dramatic and so over the top, and it got to a point to where every time somebody jumped out, he would scream, and he's like, "Oh shit!" like freaking out.
And that is pretty spot on about how he sounds too.
And it was so funny that the guys that worked in the haunted house started following us so that they could see the other actors' reactions when he screamed.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And by the time
sorry.
Yeah.
by the time we made it to the end, like none of them could even jump out because they were laughing too hard. Oh, it was something else. It was a
They came
treat.
home and told me about it, and I'm like crying.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That is
that's so
hilarious.
my brother.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that-
nobody was scared. Everybody was laughing. The kids were laughing. He was laughing. Daniel's laughing. The
Yeah.
staff is laughing. I'm like, glad you guys had a good time though. It sounds like it was fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a kid in front of us. The one we went to sounded just like that too. Like every time somebody came out, he was just like, ah!
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
were following him. Like we walked through. It was like a little bit of a maze, and nobody was really scaring us because they were following the people in front of us. We're like, okay, we're
'Cause
just
they
getting a
were
free
done.
walkthrough.
Right.
So that was
Fucking
really
clown
good.
with a chainsaw right there. We're just like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aaron, do you remember your first horror movie? I don't know if I even ever asked you that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's been a long time, but
What's the first one that you remember? Because
I
I really
remember.
don't even think I ever asked you this question, to be honest, on the show. So this is
Wow.
interesting.
I want to say Friday the 13th.
Really?
I think so. I could be wrong, but I want to say it's Friday the 13th though, because that's what
Like
sticks
part
out.
one?
Yeah, like because that's what like stuck out to me the most. And so, but again, I might not be it. But
That's a pretty good one to start, but like that's the other thing that's really funny when you ask people, you like for the most part when you ask them, hey, what's your first movie you ever saw? It's always like a slasher.
Mm-hmm.
You
One
know,
of the
especially
classics.
when it's a
Well, a
horror
lot of us
movie.
tend to be the same age in this community or around the same age, and even if we're not, slashers are the ones that are the on stickers, the ones that have
Yeah.
the huge franchises,
Yep.
the ones that they show.
Everybody knows.
Yeah, so like even if you haven't seen the movie, you know who Freddy Krueger is, right? You
Yeah.
know, so I think that's probably why that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
That's my
like I
theory.
said, it
I
might
was a
not even
theory
be
on
Friday
everything,
the
sorry.
13th, but that's, but yeah, that's probably like you said.
I got
that's
Halloween, so I got Michael,
Yeah.
and you got Jason.
But Jason did always stick out to me though. Because, but,
Yeah. I guess probably like one of the final questions I can ask that kind of like tails with if you ever thought that you'd be as big as you are. You guys consider the podcast being one of the big ones? Like, do you think, like, you personally, do you feel like you're part of like the bigger podcasts that are out there?
I'll let you go first.
No, I don't. And I get, maybe that's me trying to be humble. I, I, th- honestly, like, I think as far as like podcast size go, like, biggest as far as like we have the most people on, absolutely, I think so. But as far as like most listened, no, I don't think that. Is there a possibility it could come to that? Yeah, absolutely. And I would be stupid if I said I didn't want that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course I want that. I want people to listen to us. I want people to love us. I just want to be loved.
We love you.
But well, we love you too.
I'm pretty attached to you.
but I mean, it's
like as a friend.
right.
Me too.
But yeah, I mean, it's if we're talking about like listens and downloads compared to other podcasts, no, I don't think so. I think there are others out there that get a lot more what's the word I'm looking for?
Traction.
A lot more traction, a lot more visibility, and have a bigger fan base, and that's cool, just don't be fucking dicks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just because you got a shit ton of downloads and listens doesn't mean that you can't look out for the little guy and share their show every now and then. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad too that there are people out there who will refuse to help you out. Like you'll help them out like the whole time, and then be like, "Yeah, not gonna worry about you at all."
We've
Very
run
annoying.
into
Yeah,
it.
we've seen
Good
that happen
for
a
you.
couple times.
Yeah,
I
we've
usually
run
handle
into
that
it.
part of it, and it's disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just want to be everybody's friend. At the end of the day, I just want to be everybody's friend, and I really try to be a good friend. And
Yeah.
there are people that have been really good friends to me, and that's what I love about our network and the person who put it together. We've kind of gone on this journey together. That's Ian from Podcast of the Damned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ian's great.
We've kind of gone through this together as friends, and it was weird that we got to be. I don't even remember how it happened, but we were both kind of starting out, and then we've just been friends ever since. So, but as far as I'm gonna have to disagree with Shawn a little bit on this. Surprise, surprise.
Oh.
Who's
But-
surprised by that?
Hush. The thing is that I'm absolutely humble about this. I mean, it's just like I really never thought. I'm so used to everybody in my life like being annoyed with how much I talk, and kind of getting that glazed over look in their eyes. So I assumed that nobody would want to listen. So I was like, if we get like one listener or two listeners, like that's all I need. Like that's enough for me to feel like validated in the hard work that I do. But to be fair, Shawn was kind of dragged along for a couple seasons. He really didn't want to do it, and I was like, please do this. And he has been my rock, my bastion, my everything, my foundation. I can't do it without him. But it's just like it was more that he would edit, but it was like now in the last season or so, last two seasons, I'm so happy that people are recognizing him, and he is getting way more involved. He's looking at things and from different aspects, and I've watched this thing grow exponentially. Like, and it shocks me every time. To this very day, I look and I'm like, holy shit! Why do we have this many downloads? It just came out like 2 hours ago. Like, what's going on? I still do that, and do I think that we're like the biggest or whatever, like number wise, yeah, but I don't think we're the type of format because we're not really formatted that's ever going to be like number one or the top 10 because we're not very professional. Um, but I will say that when we have celebrities on, they're like, that is the best time I ever had. Vic from Cosmic Cats, he said, "Oh my God, we troll interviewers because they ask us the same fucking questions." He said, "You didn't even really ask any questions. You just let us bullshit, and that was the greatest thing."
Shoot the shit, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's our whole vibe. That's what we do. It's not for everyone, but am I surprised by the success that we have? Absolutely. And we were really vibing way beyond what I ever thought we would. And then when the Joe Bob thing happened, it just really everything clicked. Everything went into place. So we're at a point where um I'm surprised by how many people reach out to us. I handle all the socials and the emails and all that stuff. So the stuff that I see, I don't always put in front of everybody.
Yeah.
People asking us to please promote their film. Can you please review my film? You guys have a lot of listeners. You have a lot of clout, and I'm like, we do. Um,
Yeah.
okay. And just people know like who I am because of my name, because I talk so much, because I promote so much. Like people that I don't know are like, "Oh, Candy, the Final Girl, she's fucking awesome." I'm like, what?
Yeah. Shit can be really surprising. And I think everybody on the show is super humble. Even in their own podcast, everybody's super humble. And I think that's why I gravitated so much to your show. It's just because of how open everybody is. And I have to disagree when you say that you're not professional. I really do think you are in every aspect. I think everybody in the show is professional in their own way. I mean, like you were saying, like I know audio is a really big part. I know that you're starting to work on getting more mics and better, like things for everybody else on there, and that's why I really want everybody to go and support you guys in any means possible. Go and do the listener support on Anchor, which is a great way to support any podcast if they have that. And I know you guys have that, and I'm always trying to put it forward for you guys too, because I want to share the love with everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for doing what you do, seriously. And I'm always trying to help everybody. Like I'm right there with you guys, just trying to help. And it really sucks when you run into the people who are just trying to use you just for their own gain, and it's really heartbreaking. But that's the sad reality of the world, that everybody's trying to go one way and kind of step on everybody else.
And that's when you realize that you've reached a certain amount of success.
Yeah.
Is when you are in super high demand, and some people they want you to launch their show for them, and I'm just like, look, we paid our dues. We didn't have any guests. We had shitty audio. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing.
Yeah.
And
Earned it.
I will help you. I will give you advice so you don't have to go through like our season 1 episode. But you learn along the way certain things, what your chemistry is, how many people you can handle at one time. Do you like having guests on all the time? Because we have guests on almost every episode.
Yeah.
You find your groove, but it's like I can't. I started to realize that people were using me because they would have me on their first episode or second episode, and name drop me, and then and name drop our show, and then they never talk to me again.
Yeah, and that
I
sucks.
would reach out to them, and they would not even respond to me, and I'm like, that's when I started to realize like. So we have enough clout that you want to use our name, but I'm not good enough for you to talk to me.
No, and that's super upsetting. And this honestly makes me, even more excited and happy that you guys wanted to come on our show.
Well, of course we did. We love you
we love
guys.
you guys.
But you guys are actually our friends.
Right.
And
And to kind of go along with what Candy said, just because I'm her husband doesn't mean that I agree with her all the time. But on this particular thing, I agree with. I never thought that we would be where we're at right now.
Same with us right now, man. Same.
And you got to understand, like I said earlier, there are so many horror podcasts out there, and there are so many podcasts that people start, and they may make it a couple of months, maybe a couple of episodes. And maybe, they thought going into it, well, this podcast gets 500 listens a week. So, if they can do it, I can do it. And they get maybe 20, and they get super bummed. And
Yeah,
they're like,
they get
you know what?
discouraged and they
Fuck
get
it.
angry.
And those are the ones that get into it just for the success.
Exactly.
Right? But it's when we got into it, it wasn't about that. It wasn't about numbers. It really never has been. The numbers
No.
help. The numbers are nice.
Mm-hmm.
They're a good motivator.
Exactly.
You know, and it's nice to see those numbers increase, you know, every week or every month, you know, whatever
It's
it may be.
humbling.
It is.
It really is.
And it makes you feel good. But, you know, for anybody out there who maybe has an idea of a podcast or wants to start a podcast, but they're kind of on the fence, just fucking do it.
Yeah.
You know, do it and come up with your format. You don't have to be like everybody else. Come up with your own ideas and, you know, reach out to people because that's what we did. That's what you guys did. You know, all different kinds of podcasts. Reach out and get suggestions, get ideas. You know, hey, what's a good mic to use? Hey, what audio platform do you use to edit? You know, here we are 2.5 years later, and I'm still learning new techniques on how to edit.
And you're always learning from it too. It's like, you know, you see
Right.
the growth with every episode.
Yeah,
Correct.
if we had a review on Apple Podcasts about, you know, great podcast, but they need to work on their audio. And so when I see something like that, I'm like, oh, well, what can I do differently that's going to make it sound better? So then, bam, here I am on, you know, YouTube, which is where I learn how to do everything
Yes.
these days. And, you know, and I'm watching all of these tutorials on Audacity and FL Studio, which is, you know, what I use to edit. And, you know, all these different ideas on, you know, how to use an EQ or compression or, you know, filter or, you know, canceling background noise, things like that. And, you know, I mean, Candy and I, we've got 3 kids. 2 of them still live here. And I record in the living room. And I tell the kids, hey, Dad's recording.
Yeah.
You know, which kind of means, hey, you know, try to keep it down. But I can't control them. I'm not going to force them to, you know, be locked in their rooms. So we may be recording a show. There have been a couple episodes where I'm listening to the episode as I'm editing, and I'm like, what is that fucking noise in the background? And it's the kids in the kitchen, you know, making snacks. And you can hear the microwave going off and stuff. And I'm like, shit. So now I got to go through and I got to edit all that out, you know, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, that's cool.
I'm in the garage where I can smoke and nobody, even if the kids bring out the trash, they're like tiptoeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my son's 4, and right now, like we record in what used to be his room, but he likes to sleep like in the room with us. So I kind of transformed
My
it
son
into.
slept with us till he was 7.
Yeah, so he moved in there, and I formed it in here. So when we record on Saturdays is like our day to do it, which is today. My fiance's home, and they're out there. I know how to, you know, like, you know, put gates and stuff on to kind of minimize the background noise. At least for like the main show recording. I know probably for the Zoom it's not going to be the same, but normally, like if I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be recording, like you can play. I just don't want you being super loud. He's like, yeah, that's fine. So he'll be out there, and he's 4, and he does pretty well. I mean, occasionally he'll be really, really loud, and it's just like, well, whatever. I'll
He's
just have to deal
4,
with it
you
later.
know? Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, a lot of people that do this, I mean, they're married, they have kids, they work a regular job. The reason that I am, you know, with Shawn and I, it's sort of left brain and right brain. He's Mr., you know, logical, doing all the technical stuff, and I'm Miss Creative ADHD over here. So, you know, we're able to come in the middle, and our kids aren't little anymore. So, you know, there's a certain, I'm going to, you know, we know that you record at 8 o'clock, and we have an open living room that kind of opens into the kitchen, and they all want to start making some snacks and shit at 8 o'clock, and they know we're recording. I mean, they've gotten better about it, but that doesn't impact me, but it does him. And so, but that's where if we want to be hardwired and have stability, usually I don't have these kind of computer problems, but like it just picks a week and it wants to fuck with every recording I do, and that week it was fucking with me last night, fucked with me Thursday, it's obviously fucking with me tonight. So there's payoffs for either one.
yeah.
You know, he gets the stability and I get like the crazy, but I don't have any interruptions out here. So, you know.
Unless
Pays
there's
off on both ends of the spectrum.
yeah, unless there's a bird in the garage, which we've
Okay, yeah, when we did Society, I think that was season 2. I remember it was in the summer, and it gets really kind of muggy. It's not tonight because it's cooled off from the rain, but it gets muggy. here in Indiana, which I don't fucking understand why. It's the fucking Midwest. So we had pulled open the garage door, and that was when we would record in the same room. We did that. We started separate. We recorded for a while in the same room, and then we split up again because it's better audio-wise. But there was a bird in the fucking room, and I'm afraid of birds.
Oh, no.
I have stories about that, but that's a different thing. And so we're recording, talking about Society. I'm having a great time because I love the fucking movie. And I was like, yeah, we're doing Society, and everybody's like, okay. And this bird
like
flies
Society.
in, and then like randomly throughout the episode, you'll hear me scream because the bird flaps its wings and it's echoing in the garage, and I'm like, because I get attacked by a goose, and they flap their wings to intimidate you. And
Geese
it's this
are
little fucking
assholes,
like pigeon.
Yeah.
And I'm screaming randomly. I'm just talking, and I'll just start screaming. And I'm like, and he's just like, it's a fucking bird. It's just right sitting on the the garage door. I'm like, I don't want the bird in here.
Yeah, he sat out there for hours. It was just a pigeon, just sitting there.
Smock.
Their show's 2 hours long, and I'm screaming randomly, intermittently in the middle of a sentence. And just adds a little flavor.
Yeah, great content.
Yeah.
Getting back to the authenticity of it, the natural flow of it,
Yeah.
Right.
and that's kind of what we were going for too.
Yeah, like we
Best
do.
compliments. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. We do all this, just for the fun of it, like everybody else, and we really try to keep everything as genuine as possible. We don't lie here. I know there's been shows I have listened to that I had to stop listening to because you can kind of hear that people are just saying things for the sake of saying it and to get people to listen to their shows, which is another thing that I don't like. That's a big gripe of mine in the podcasting community. But yeah, we keep everything very, very true here. We're always supporting everybody who needs the support, as long as you're not a dickbag. But yeah, it's been definitely a ride over here, and having you guys on has just been such a huge plus, and it feels really good to know that we have found pretty much our family and our ground here in the community. And just for how genuine and humble you and everybody else on your show are is amazing. And I really wish everybody would be on the same page and doing the same thing like you guys and us over here and everybody in our entertainment group. It's fun. I love doing this. I really, really do.
Absolutely.
And that's the advice that I give to anybody who comes to me for advice is that, if you're attracted to our show, then you have to understand, one, we don't edit out what we say, including the foul words that come out of my mouth and sometimes weird shit that I say. But we're very honest, and we don't edit out what anybody says. We don't want to take that away from anybody. Of course, we don't. There's no hate speech allowed. We don't have too many rules, but like no hate speech, no
Exactly. Yeah.
Anything like that. And you'll never hear that on the show. But you might hear us bicker, but it's in love that we do that, and we're all very dear friends. But people, the best compliments we've ever gotten have been like, I feel like when I put on your show that I walked into a room of friends just like sitting around drinking, smoking, whatever, and they're talking about movies, and I just feel like
You feel like you're there.
I'm hanging out with friends, and I'm like,
Exactly.
that's exactly what's going on here, So that means we're doing exactly what we set out to do.
That's great.
You're doing something right, it's starting to pay off. You guys are seeing success, and
It's
love
weird.
to see it.
Weird.
But
it is
I
weird.
think that's pretty much all that we have to ask for tonight. Is there any last remarks that either of you want to put out there? Any upcoming episodes or anything you guys want to push along right now to let everybody know?
Why
Look at you.
Oh, you're looking at me. Oh.
I'm trying to overtalk you like I always do. I'm trying to be good.
Well, we've got. I'm not sure when you're going to be releasing this.
This
but,
will be released on this coming Tuesday.
Okay. Well, guess what? Cube comes out today. So
Hell
check
yeah.
it out. No, we just did Cube. We've got some backup episodes. I believe our first Brain Eaters episode, literary discussion about Chuck Palahniuk's Haunted, which
That
if
was a
you've
fucked
never read is a fucked up book.
It's great. It's fucked up, though.
And we've got some other episodes they're going to be
I've got it in
coming
front
up.
of me.
Yeah, knock it out. Let's hear it.
We did Freaks, which I did some amazing cosplay that night because I always take pictures and put that on our on I say our, but it is Candy the Final Girl on Instagram. Um, but like I did the whole 30s thing and
That's awesome.
dressed up as Cleopatra from the movie. So we did Freaks, so that's probably the oldest film that we've done to date. But we've got the Monster Squad that we did talk about a little bit earlier. We did Big Trouble in Little China, which everyone was so pumped about on social media. So that will be coming out shortly. We have a couple Brain Eaters. On the other one, we talked about the entire Dark Tower series from Stephen
Love
King.
that series. People
Oh, you're
don't
gonna love that
understand how
fucking
much of a
episode.
genius Stephen King is, with everything
epic,
being
his
wrapped up
magnum
in one
opus.
multiverse.
Yeah,
It's
it's
nuts.
it's a great episode too.
You're gonna love the episode. So we managed to pack into it. I think it ran a little bit longer, obviously, than our normal episodes, but not too much. But we did talk about every single book in the series, and touched on the important points and our thoughts, of course. And I'm sure we say some crazy things, and I'm make some dick jokes because that's what we do.
Hey,
But
that's the best part.
yeah,
One of them.
course. But yeah, I mean, so we've got Brain Eaters. I think a lot. There's a lot of horror fans that want to hear about books too, and we don't want to just specifically talk about books. We mostly do movies, but we want to. A lot of us are readers on the show, and we know that a lot of people who listen like to read. So we're excited to get those out there. So maybe it's a book you haven't read, or maybe it's a series that you'd love to hear people talk about, like The Dark Tower. So we've got a lot of cool stuff like that coming.
That's absolutely awesome. It was a great time chatting with you guys. I know that we'll be seeing both of you very soon to actually do some actual movie reviews, and I think we're also coming on the show in a little bit. I forget when it was. I'll have to look again. But
I'll look at my schedule.
we're always there. Whenever you guys need us and whenever you want to come on, like we're always open. That's another thing that I love about you guys is you're always scheduling in advance, and I'm starting to do that now too. Candy, I'm learning from you.
Ian's like, I schedule in advance, but Jesus Christ, Candy.
Oh
Yeah,
she
like
goes
I've been
way over the top.
This year we did a full year layout, and that's why I keep sending everybody. I'm like, this is because of Candy, and I love that idea of having it all
you.
done.
Well, it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because you have it all planned out, but then if something happens and you have to
As it
take a
did.
week off, then you have to reschedule
Yeah.
everything, and
But that's
so
my
it's-
job, and I
Yeah,
do it, I think,
yeah.
pretty well with that.
Yes.
Yeah, and real quick before we go, as I'm sure that you guys run into this when you edit or when you re-listen to an episode. You find something like you have a cringe moment, right? Like you hear
Yes.
yourself do something or say something, and you're like, My biggest cringe moment to date is when I was on your show
No.
and we were doing Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, I know what
Because-
you're gonna say.
When I went back and I listened to that after you played it, and I kept calling James Karen Frank Karen because I was thinking about his character. Because I kept saying Frank and Freddy, but then when I would say James Karen, I would say Frank Karen, and I listened to it and I'm like, oh my god,
You know when that moment was for me? One of our few other perfect scores, and I think we had 12 people in the episode, was when we did The Thing.
The Thing, yeah.
It's our number 6 episode of
remember that.
downloads, which I'm surprised by that it's not in the top 5 yet. But it was a while ago that we did it. But I kept calling the original movie the wrong title, and no one corrected me. They would just say it correctly on their turn. I'm like, thank you. But I feel like a fucking dumbass, and I had to put that in the description, like, Candy's stupid. And it's okay. And everyone was very respectful about my stupidity. Thank you for that.
Everybody's brain farts.
Oh yeah, we all have them.
Yeah. I know there's
trying
definitely
to sound
some,
intelligent.
but I don't know if I can think of a moment off the top of my head right now. But I'm sure that there's
For
definitely
me, it's whenever I talk. I hear my voice. I'm
Shut
like,
up, dude. Shut
I
up.
do the same thing. I think about when I was younger and I would record. We would do make your own mixtapes and stuff when I was a kid, but we would do it as we were radio announcers.
Oh.
I think every kid did that, yeah.
And then I would go back and listen to it, and I'm like, why do I sound like that? So I think everybody's kind of nitpicks their own
yeah.
voice.
I've definitely been there. I've gotten used to it. But I think on that note, this was such a great time and
Yeah,
having you guys
thank you
on.
so much.
Absolutely.
This
Yeah,
is
thanks for having us.
an almost 2 hour podcast of just shooting the shit and talking about how you guys, became who you are and what inspired us to start our own little show. So thank you, Shawn and
Appreciate that
Candy,
so
for
much.
being here and
Yeah,
taking the
thank you.
time to talk and whatnot. But that was our new, and I would say kind of improved from our main series. I like doing this, like, honestly way more just talking to people, but our new season of our series called Within the Barrens, which is all about interviews. We will be talking about movies, but not the way you think. So this was awesome. I was
That's
your host.
amazing. I'm really excited for you guys. Thank you
Yeah,
so
no
much
kidding.
for having
Thank
us.
you.
This is
No,
Appreciate it.
seriously.
I felt so honored.
Yeah, like, thank you, honestly, for doing this and for being who you guys are and for making that podcast. That one day, Shawn was like, yeah, I don't want to fucking do this, and then now here you are, and
And then she strong-armed me and made me do it anyway.
yeah, it came out, I guess, probably way better than you thought it was going to. And keep carrying on, guys, keep carrying on. I was your host, Dustin.
Big host Aaron.
And those are our special guests, the main hosts of The House That Screams. Thank you guys so much for being here. And this is going to be, I think, a really good release, and hopefully it boosts everybody. So thank you guys for being here, seriously.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having us.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye. Thanks so much.
Thank you.